And you'll notice that the mission has nothing to do with growing food. It's all about growing people.
You're listening to the Transcendent Farmer Podcast with your host, Emily Reno. Welcome back, Transcendent Farmers, to another episode of the Transcendent Farmer Podcast. I am recording today from Coahuila, Mexico. That is northern Mexico. For those of you who aren't familiar with the geography, I feel a little bit embarrassed. I am a dual citizen now, and I still don't know the names of all of the states. Here in Coahuila, I find myself waking up to the sound of birds. We have goats and sheep as neighbors, and it's just the best. Sometimes you'll literally just see a pony or a horse just running in front of the house. And then you don't typically find people chasing after the animals, but I do find that quite hilarious. And I honestly feel like I've never slept better than now, like since I've been in Mexico for almost a year. And it's just wild, right? I think there's something about rural living that just allows your nervous system to relax. So I wanted to provide a couple of quick updates on the mezclada front. I'm not going to lie. About 4 months ago, I thought I was on the verge of having to shut things down in my business. Things were not moving in the right direction that I wanted them to with my revenue goals. I had invested almost $4,000 in my professional development through this interpreting program through Middlebury Institute. And I had to pull that from savings because I didn't reach my fundraising goals with my crowdfunding campaign. I was at a very, very low point, and I was putting, all these proposals in for jobs. I was like, okay, I've reached the point where I just need to apply for a part-time job because I can't afford to keep pulling from savings in order to pay myself. Like, I'm getting to a point where it's too low for my liking. And interestingly enough, again, no traction. And it's not like I don't have something to offer. I know that I'm very valuable as an employee, but I felt like these doors kept closing. And so I decided to change my approach. I started to apply for funding to do the work that I wanted to do. So seeking out things to fund my podcast production endeavors, for example, and then applied directly through my business to do different projects instead of doing that just as, Emily Reno, for example. So I doubled down on my outreach related to government contracting. And then I put Mezclada as the lead applicant on these proposals. And what was really interesting was that around early January, a lot of things just started popping up out of the blue. I signed a year-long contract with an old client of mine. I signed another contract with some folks that I had known from work literally 6 years prior. And then another short-term opportunity came up that basically helped me fill the gap of what I was working towards in terms of that, revenue goal for the month. What's interesting, though, is that none of what came through were the applications that I was putting in. It was the relationships that I had built in my strong referral network. So here's what shifted. I made a decision to commit to my business, basically to not give up and to pull things together in the short term, even if what ended up resulting wasn't going to be my dream gig. I'm going to throw in the show notes a link to a seminar that I believe I've mentioned previously. It was probably one of the most transformative pieces of audio I listened to in the entire year of 2025. I'm listening to it for the third time now, and it's 9 hours of content. Somewhere around hour 6 or 7, Brian talks about the difference between people that make it and people who don't when they are setting a goal or working towards a goal is that piece of commitment. And that's really what changed for me. So you fast forward, right? A few months later, and just yesterday afternoon, I found out that I was selected as a second place winner in a pitch competition sponsored by the West Central Small Business Development Center. And so this is a value of about $35,000 in technical support from a company called Predictive. And they're going to help me scale my work in AI grant writing for farmers. So it's not just in business that I'm seeing this positive momentum. Here's the other piece of my life where I'm seeing results from digging my heels in and not giving up on my dream. And honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. But I think that in having moved to northern Mexico, I may now have access to property where I can finally dig my hands into the dirt and start growing again. Just a couple of days ago, I looked up where I could buy heirloom seeds, and I'll probably put in an order for some growing containers to start on the roof. So stay tuned for more on that in future episodes, because obviously that is the entire focus of my life's work and my business and everything that I'm seeking to help you with. And what's funny is that it's not the way that I've been able to get access to that is not at all how I thought it was going to be. So stay tuned. What's the takeaway here? Discipline and focus aren't easy when life is smooth sailing. Determination only pays off when things get hard. So keep going. Don't give up. Keep dreaming and keep sharing your dreams with others, because sometimes you're only one conversation away from reaching the goals that you need to. So with that, I'd like to briefly introduce today's episode to you. If you are curious to learn a little bit more about Hawaiian culture and nonprofit management, this conversation is definitely for you. Chelsey does an outstanding job of sharing what it's like to have a great mentor. And this is something that I believe most young professionals take for granted. So I want you to pay attention to this. If you've also ever been curious to know how to build a nonprofit that's financially sustainable, I want you to take note of the diverse sources of revenue, income, the programming that Chelsey describes, because it's not explicit, but I think that it's an important takeaway from how she's describing the work of this nonprofit. And if nothing else, I hope that this interview serves as a reminder of the importance of staying connected to and honoring your ancestors, no matter what line of work you find yourself in. I'm really excited to introduce you to my guest today, Chelsey Victoria J. Just a little bit of context on how we got connected. As I was hopping around the world, as I always find myself doing, I ended up taking somewhat of an extended trip to Hawaii. And I had basically done a bit of research ahead of time to figure out who is operating in the sustainable ag space, what cool, like innovative stuff is going on. And this was one of the first websites, farm websites, if you will, that came up on the list. And I just remember when I was still in Australia watching the video that was talking about the history of this farm and just being like, yes, I have to come here. And I really, it was just a cold call of an email, and just sort of hoping for the best, and trusting that if I was to end up at this good. And I did end up getting to go visit this amazing farm. And I'll never forget. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes when you walk into a space, you can just feel the energy shift, and you feel it in your body. And I totally felt that when I came out to visit with you guys and sort of see this event that you had put on. Something very special about this place. And I know at the end we'll make sure that you can find out how to go visit. I just want to introduce you to Chelsey Victoria J. Being from the west side of Oahu has allowed Chelsey the wonderful privilege to simultaneously grow up near the ocean and at the foot of the Waianae Mountains. This unique upbringing instilled the deep love she has for her community and Native Hawaiian culture, inspiring her to pursue a higher education and obtain a meaningful career within her community. She's a proud 2007 graduate of Kamehameha Schools and received a Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Science and Resource Management from the University of Washington, and a master's degree in Educational Foundations from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She currently serves as the very new executive director at Āina o Mākaha, or HAOM, a 5-acre educational and community farm located in the Moku, or region of Waianae, founded in 1979 by Gigi and Judy Kokio as a nonprofit organization. For 10 years, she served the West Oahu community at Malama Learning Center, working to organize environmental stewardship programs, creating opportunities for the community to access Āina, or that which feeds, including the land and ocean, in meaningful ways, and building the capacity of the next generation. Chelsey is excited to help continue the important work of HAOM, as she believes that the health of our people and our Āina go hand in hand. So, developing reciprocal relationships with our place is key to perpetuate the legacy of our ancestors and shape a future rooted in love of land. With lots of gratitude and humility, Chelsey is trying her best to Kuleana to carry this responsibility and honor Uncle Gigi and Auntie Judy and all of the people who love this place. So, welcome, Chelsey.
Mahalo, Emily, for that beautiful introduction.
Yeah, so I want to kick things off by just helping people understand a little bit of the place of this farm, right? Could you paint the picture of Āina o Mākaha and the community that it's located in?
Yeah, so Āina Mākaha is located in the Mokua region of Waianae, which is on the leeward side of Oahu, in the community of Mākaha, which is famous for its surf, just beautiful picturesque mountains, and just beautiful community. Our farm just so happens to be located right next to an elementary school, which I think is a beautiful relationship that we have with that school. Being an extension of that school, we host the kids on the farm and teachers on the farm weekly, if not daily. And so, yeah, it's a 5-acre community farm and educational space that was a barren space 45 years ago, 50 years ago. And, this group of people came together, Uncle Gigi, all these other folks, Sister Āina, Edgar Locke, Uncle Eric Enos, all came together to transform this land into a place of abundance and a place for people to gather and to be together. So Āina Mākaha was formerly known as Mākaha Farm because it was situated on Catholic land. It was owned by the Catholic Church. And so it was called Mākaha Farm at first because quite literally that's what they were doing was, growing food. But Auntie Pua Burgess, who's this amazing community member and activist and poet from the Waianae community, gifted the name Āina Mākaha to the farm to represent the true essence of what was happening at that farm, which was Hoa means friend in Hawaiian, Aina means that which feeds or land and ocean, and of Mākaha, so Āina o Mākaha means land of Mākaha shared in friendship. And so, yeah, we're just a humble 5-acre farm in residential Mākaha. We're surrounded by houses and by the school. And yeah, it's quite a beautiful space. We're very lucky to be where we are. And we're in the community of Waianae, which, like I said, is on the leeward side of Oahu in Hawaii. But yeah, that's a picture of Hawaii.
I love it. And one of the things that I think is super beautiful is the farm's mission and tagline. Could you explain that?
Yeah, our mission is very unique and has been the mission for 45 years now since its founding in 1979. And the mission is creating peaceful communities in harmony with nature through the eyes, hands, and hearts of the children. And so, something that I really find unique about our mission is 2 words, the word peaceful and the word children. And so, always focusing and trying to be in alignment with that. And you'll notice that the mission has nothing to do with growing food. It's all about growing people. So how we do that is through the process of growing food, bringing people together around growing food and eating food and cooking. But yeah, you'll notice in the mission, it really has nothing to do with growing food. That's just how we choose to advance our mission is through growing food with people and through growing community and growing people. And so our tagline, that's our tagline is like planting seeds of hope because Uncle Gigi, he's such a beautiful speaker. He's one of our founders and he was the executive director for 40 plus years at this organization and always trying to honor his legacy and the work that he has done with so many people. But he always talks about how people are like plants. We have to tend to them, we have to care for them, show them aloha and love, and they will grow. And so we learned so many lessons from Uncle Gigi around how people are like plants. Our Aina is, people are like trees, and it's very beautiful the way he makes those comparisons. And so, yeah, that's kind of like our short tagline is planting seeds of hope. And also our work is about community self-reliance, peacemaking in Waianae, and also supporting ohana, our families.
I love that. And I think it's amazing to think about how our world might be different if most people carried that within themselves. This idea of thinking about the people around us as plants, right, that need tended to. I think we would probably be a lot more kind to ourselves and others if that was something that we all embodied. So I love that. And I think we would be really interested in learning more about the programming at the farm. Let's talk a little bit more about that in detail. How does it serve youth and the wider community?
Yeah, so the programming at Āina has definitely evolved over the past 45 years, but it did start with supporting students, supporting and families. So that's something we still try to do as much as we can, but it definitely, like any organization, evolves and grows and innovates. So right now we have three main programs. We have our Nakikioka Āina program, which has been running for almost 40 years now. And that program is specifically geared towards supporting the students of Mākaha Elementary School, which is right next to our farm. And so that one, we have different farm-based lessons, hands-on lessons that we do with the students at Mākaha Elementary School, all focused around the farm. So it could be like about pollination or Hawaiian history and Hawaiian culture. This past year, we made an adobe house with the fifth graders and planted three sisters. So the farm is very interdisciplinary in that way. Like there's no set curriculum. It kind of depends what teachers want to do. But we have a lot of amazing gathering spaces on the farm, like a Hawaiian hale. We have a gazebo. We have a picnic area where we gather all the students. So the beauty of the farm is that there's so many gathering spaces and shaded learning spaces that make it comfortable to learn in an outdoor setting, because it is quite hot in Mākaha. We are the leeward or the dry side of the island. So there's such a huge difference when you stand in the sun versus when you sit in the shade. And so it is a very pleasant place to learn. We also have, some animals that people can look at. So teaching about animal care. So yeah, it depends, but also growing food. And so, we use the Hawaiian word mahiai. Mahi means to cultivate, ai means food. So teaching kids mahiai practices, both traditional and modern, because we're not just growing all native Hawaiian crops. Traditional Hawaiian crops are growing a combination of Hawaiian crops as well as like all kind of fun stuff from around the world. And so, yeah, teaching keiki or kids mahiai practices and about their connection to Hawaii and how do we steward the land in Hawaii in a pono or just sustainable and in a good way. So that's one program that we've been running since like 1987. So it's almost 40 years, just for Mākaha Elementary. Then we have another program called Keala, which is our program for anyone who comes outside of Mākaha Elementary. So it could be kids from Waianae or even kids from, other parts of Oahu. We get people from outer islands, people from other countries. And so people are welcome to visit us through our Keala program, where, we have a specific program where we do a tour. We do some hana or some work on the farm. It's very gentle. We're not doing anything super crazy. It could be weeding, it could be planting seedlings. And we go visit the animals and we feed them. We make sugarcane juice because we have sugarcane on the property. And then also people get to take home a plant starter. So that's our Keala program. That's been running for like 30 years now. And then this is something a little bit newer since like 2021. A pivot during COVID was our UPIC program. So that's our community program, which was our UPIC Farm to Basket experience program, where people can come on the farm. Anyone from community can come on the farm, pick from designated fields. There's no limit to how much you can take. We just ask that you take what you need and you give what you can, in the sense that if you want to give a donation, you're welcome to. There is no required or set donation, which I think is really beautiful, right? That's equity, right? We're not prescribing what we think people should be giving and doing a one size fits all. It's based on your own personal situation and what you can give. And so, yes, our work is about access to food, access to nutrient dense food. And that's really great. And I think that's a great outcome of what we do, and empowering people through education. And how do you grow your own food if you can grow it at home? And how do you cook? Like, we have a small kitchen on the farm. So with our smaller groups, because it's really tiny, we, sharpen our cooking skills. We shift our palate towards more, vegetables and fruits. We sample things on the farm. And so, yeah, the really young kids are cooking already and experimenting with different recipes. And so, yeah, the farm is really about empowering people through education, and it's about food. It's about health. The farm is about so many different things other than just growing food, but that is a beautiful outcome of what we do as well. But we're not a production farm in the sense that, we're not selling things to the market, or we don't have a CSA. Our UPIC program is, that's where you can get access to the food, and then we weigh it so we know how much pounds of food are going out into the community. But we also have activities during our UPIC. It's not just about, harvesting your own fruits and vegetables. It's about being together on the farm. So it's a very family friendly event. People can take home plant starters. We'll have value added products that we make. We do sugarcane juice. Yeah, so the UPIC event is really amazing, and that's the one for community. And so those are the three main programs we've been running synonymously together. And what I love about our programmings is everything is based around the farm. And a lot of the programs, like our Kiala program and Nakikioka Āina program, feed into our UPIC. So when we get students who come visit us for a couple hours as a part of their school field trip, we plant in the fields and we tell them, hey, this is to feed community, so we tell them about the UPIC event. So all the programs kind of feed into each other instead of being kind of separate, which I really love because they're all connected. We have, we do run a summer program, which is connected to our Nakiki program. And then we also just started a scholarship program for students from West Oahu pursuing higher education or vocational degrees related to health and well-being of Āina and of people. So yeah, we just started that too. But yeah, that's our programming at Hawaiiana.
I love that. And I think for anyone listening, they can probably appreciate the level of diversification that is present within all of that. And I will say from some of my own experiences too, if you are someone that likes diversity within what you do, which I think a lot of farmers do, being able to find ways to build some kind of a through line between all of the things that you're managing so that they can complement each other, it just makes the work so much easier. And a lot of times I've struggled with the fact that because I manage so many different kinds of projects, sometimes I can get in my head and think about, oh, this is a distraction, from what I actually want to be doing, when actually I just need to reframe it and sort of think about it from the perspective of this is actually supporting me to do that other work, or it's building skills that are helping me for whatever is coming next. So I think that's really cool. And I think that one of the things that people would also probably appreciate learning more about is, as an executive director of a nonprofit farm, what do you feel like are the skills that are needed to do this well?
Well, first, I want to say that I by no means consider myself the farmer or the mahiai. We have an amazing team of staff that have been at Hawaiiana for so long, who are very knowledgeable in farming, in agriculture, and they're also amazing at education and how do you educate, really young keiki, because we get kids on the farm who are in diapers. They come around, they're getting pushed on the on the farm in their stroller. That's a beautiful thing about a lot of our visits is a lot of the parents come. So that intergenerational aspect is so beautiful to me when I see the parents or the guardians coming with their kids to the farm and they get to experience it together. So I do want to highlight that our team is really amazing in both holding space for community, because that takes a lot of work to run educational programs and to create a space for our community that feels safe and feels peaceful, because that is in our mission. How do we cultivate this peace within ourselves and cultivate a space on the farm that feels peaceful and nurturing to our community? That in itself takes a lot of work. But also, you add to that, we're also I mean, not me, but I try and help as much as I can. I'm learning from them. They also have to steward Āina, 5 acres of Āina. And that doesn't sound like a lot of land, but our team is very small. We have 5, 6 people. So we're also trying to steward Āina or steward land in a way that we think is right, while also holding space for community. And together, those two things are not easy to do because we could just farm and be like, hey, we're just going to farm and just produce food and feed community that way. And that's all we could do. But we do that on top of holding space for community. So I really want to highlight that and never forget that our team is so amazing and they've been so dedicated to this organization. And so to cultivating food, but also cultivating a space for our community, for people. So as the executive director, I kind of joke like you do everything, you do nothing, and who knows? I don't know. But that's the role of an executive director is I think the big picture of it is, financial management, ensuring that your organization is financially healthy because none of us are doing this for free. I think we would all love to be like, hey, we're just going to volunteer our time to support Āina. And I know people would if they could, but the reality is we all have, bills to pay. We all live in Hawaii, which is a very expensive place to live. So my kuleana and how I like to think of it is ensuring that our organization is as financially healthy as it can be, which means that I have to go after grants, I have to fundraise, we have to diversify our funding. And I'm learning a lot about finances right now, which is a great skill to have, but it's like looking at a different language and speaking a different language. And this is all a skill I did not have prior to coming to Hawaii. I am a first-time executive director. So I'm learning as I'm going, but I'm lucky that we have an amazing accountant that we work with, and she really supports me and helps me learn the finances part. And then we have a grant writer that I work with. We have a great HR company because that's also my kuleana or my responsibility is HR and administrative stuff, the grant reporting, the evaluation. I do our social media, so messaging. Yeah, all the not fun stuff is the stuff I get to do.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. And I think I want to dig into this piece of the grants because I know that this is a big topic within my, I don't know, community. A lot of people know that stuff is out there. Many people are overwhelmed by grants. And I would be curious to know, and you may not have this percentage off the top of your head, but is the farm 100% grant funded or what are the plans to diversify if you are hoping to maybe get away from being 100% grant funded?
I know this might be unpopular opinion, but and this is my 11th year working in a nonprofit in general, and I always thought the nonprofit model was pretty unsustainable because we are dependent on grants. But the crazy thing is like we do a lot of the heavy lifting in our communities. And, so running a nonprofit is very much like running a business. You have to be business minded because you are still thinking about your revenue, your income, and you are still thinking about, your expenses, you're thinking about your profits and your loss. That's all things I need to pay attention to. But I would say 90% of what we do is based off of grant funding. And I think a lot of nonprofits are like that. And I don't know how to get away from that. We have really amazing supporters and funders who give us funding every year because they're so supportive of our mission. So we're so thankful to these relationships that have been cultivated with, different funders and supporters over the many years, over the 45 years. So yeah, I would say like grants, donations, if you can call them, but plans to diversify. I mean, the hard thing is like a lot of what we do is for free. Like our UPIC is free. We do make donations, but it's not, anything substantial, which is fine. That's why we get grants to do these things, to subsidize these things. And there are a lot of ways I think to make money, but yeah, it's being one, I think strategic, but also making sure we're in alignment with our mission and that knowing that, making money is not necessarily, that's not the goal, but we are trying to sustain ourselves into the future. And my hope is that, we can go another 50 years. But I need people to understand, and this is why I talk about it in a lot of spaces, is that nothing we do is free. We have to pay staff to do things. Supplies cost money, equipment costs money, everything costs money. We pay property tax, we pay our water bill, we pay electricity. And so, although we offer our programs a lot for free, nothing is free, so that's why we really work hard to run our programs in a way that is super impactful and meaningful so that we can then tell that story, because that's what I think about when I think about evaluation and reporting, is a way to tell the story of your impact to your funders, to your community. But that's why, that's another huge part of my kuleana is like metrics and outcomes and outputs, so that, hey, we can be like, hey, this is how much pounds of food we give away for free to community. This is, we're eliminating some financial, barrier because we give it away for free, or this is how many kids we reach each month.
Do you work for or run a nonprofit or small farm business and are struggling with the same challenges that Chelsey is talking about in terms of fundraising? What she's describing is so familiar to me. Now, having worked with a lot of folks who are in the same boat, they're trying to find funds and get applications out the door, but it's too time consuming and they're not getting the results that they want. This is exactly the kind of challenge that I work to address with my clients in the food and farming space, because I want more farmers to bring their goods to market and get paid well to do so. And I'll be seeking beta testers as part of my AI-supported grant writing platform that I'm building. If this sounds like something that you'd be interested in trying, go ahead and join the waitlist to be the first to find out when we'll open the doors to get more farmers and food systems leaders like you plugged in. You can find the information in the show notes to get added. And with that, let's get back to today's episode.
And so ways we do bring in some income that by no means, funds our operations, is through like a program fee. So for like our Keala program, we charge $10 per student just to help us out. We have a space sharing agreement with a preschool where, they just wanted to be on the farm and use our space, and that is mission aligned because they serve families from our community, and they just wanted to have their preschool site on our farm because they're a traveling preschool. So we have kapa'alana on our farm twice a week, and they, so we have a space sharing agreement. I think that's a really unique way to generate, some revenue, some unrestricted revenue, because that's the best kind of money, is unrestricted money. We are planning to do like a 45th year anniversary fundraiser at the end of this year. And a lot of times, I've heard people say a fundraiser is a friend raiser. So yes, it is to make money, but really it's about, deepening relationships with people. So yeah, I haven't figured it out. If people have ideas on ways to make money in the nonprofit realm, then I'm all ears.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's always a struggle thinking about creative ways to do that. And I think that's one of the biggest things I like to talk to people about is, yeah, diversifying your revenue streams, being very creative about where that stuff is coming from, whether it's related to farm production or not. I remember talking to someone recently about, yeah, this is back in Australia. So I'm excited to release this interview. I went out to a lavender farm, and it was fascinating to see the way that she had diversified, the way that she was basically leveraging her property for the use of community, but in a way that was really strategic. So like, for example, she would host different kinds of civic clubs almost, or even like makers, artisan group type people. And for certain maybe holidays, or it would be like an annual event where they'd bring a bunch of people out to the farm who also are creating their own maybe value added products, if you will. And then that would be an opportunity to bring a bunch of people out to the farm, and then sort of everyone benefits because they're all making sales and it's all sort of in alignment with the values and the mission of that farm. And I thought
Yeah.
that was really creative. And she talked about maybe using the space as like an event venue as well, so if you have specific infrastructure, being able to charge like an event fee or something like that, even if it maybe isn't directly related to farming production, but you could still be picky, right, about who you allow to use the space so that it is in alignment with the overall goal of what you have with the farm.
Yeah, because I think as a nonprofit, you have to be very careful about, because we have a lot of compliance, and that's what I'm learning too, is as a 501(c)(3), you have to always be accountable to your mission and serving your mission. So that's something I always go back to, is like, is this mission aligned? Is this partnership mutually beneficial? Is it serving our mission as well as other people's missions? So yeah, just I don't I'm still learning all of those things about compliance and stuff like that and in the nonprofit realm. But also to me, like what I'm trying to say in a lot of different spaces is that, I think part of the skills that I come with because I think I'm a first time executive director is I'm willing to learn. And so that's, I always hear Auntie Manu Meyer saying this is how do we invite willingness for this work from many different stakeholders, right? So how do you invite willingness from your team, from your board, from funders, from community? That's to me is important. So not saying that I'm trying to say that we need unlimited funding and yes, we're willing to do all the work to get it. Happy to see some traction around people trying to like streamline the grant application process like through Just Fund. So I created a profile for us in Just Fund where they have like a common app model where you submit a common application for different grants. And I can see this shift towards trust-based philanthropy rather than like, you know, tasking nonprofits with this arduous process of like reporting. And it's like, oh, okay, you still do reporting because accountability is important, transparency is important. We are all for that. I'm not saying that we're not willing to do that, but it is very time consuming and tedious to do it all the time, and it's exhausting. Like, okay, because that's constantly what I'm doing is I'm on keeping my eyes on like all these different networks that are talking about grants, and then I'm looking at those RFPs and being like, hey, do we align with this? Do we have capacity to submit a proposal for this? Because it's me and our grant writer. And also, do we have capacity to administer this grant should we get it? So always making decisions in your head about what should we be going after. Because what I forgot to mention is because we are 45 years old, we're also fundraising for capital infrastructure improvements, or which we're treating as a whole separate budget. So in addition to like our general operations, we're also trying to do renovations and upgrades on the farm, structurally. So that's a whole separate budget I have to think about. And prioritizing is really hard. And I'm always going to prioritize operations because my big thing is investing in the people in your organization. Turnover is expensive, but also like we have amazing people at the organization and we need to invest in them because without investing in the people in your organization, there is no programming. And I know that's not trendy or funders don't necessarily want to hear that, but I'm trying to say that more because I think that's the reality that we live in is that, yes, personnel salaries are the most expensive part of our budget as it is for anybody. But it is because, we're trying to work towards livable wages. We're trying to work towards really good benefits like healthcare, paid time off, paid holidays. We have this amazing 401k plan for our staff, which I think is an amazing equity practice where we do an annual contribution to our organization, contributes a 2% annual contribution, whether the employee contributes to their 401k or not, because the board understood after you pay out your bills, sometimes people don't have any money left to contribute to a 401k. So also financial planning for the future for our team. But we are still working towards livable wages. So I am trying to be more intentional about saying this in every space that I go in. And I know it's not fun to talk about money. People sometimes get offended if you talk about money, I think, but that's the reality is, yeah, we got to pay people well. And if we want to keep them and we want our programs to thrive, is we got to help people thrive too and sustain people in many ways.
Indeed. Yes. Human capital. Very important one. So you are on the Transcendent Farmer podcast, which means that I have to wrap up our conversation with asking you this question. What does it mean to you to be a transcendent farmer?
Ooh, okay. I mean, talk about imposter syndrome. I don't think I'm a farmer at all, but I think I'm working towards that. And I think a transcendent farmer is about relationships. That's my favorite word in the Hawaiian language is pilina, which means connection and relationship. And I love that word because it's applicable to so many things. And so to me, to be a transcendent farmer is to have deep relationship with the place where you come from, or for in our instance, the place that we steward. So having this really deep relationship with the Āina that we're on, and also having really deep relationships with the people that, we work with our community. But yeah, to me, everything revolves around pilina or relationships.
That's great. Yes. And it's so good to hear. I love the diversity in the responses that I get to that question. So I know people are going to be really excited to learn more about the farm and you and your work. Where would you recommend that they go to get more information?
Yeah, we have a social media account, Āina Mākaha. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. And then we also have a website. So it's www.hawaiianaomakaha.org. And on there, you'll see like ways you can contact us via email or just by submitting a form directly through our website. But yeah.
Amazing. And can people, if they're interested, can they just go to your website and make a donation to the farm?
Yeah, they can. There's actually a button that says donate up at the top. So you'll find it, you'll see it. But yeah.
Amazing. Well, I would definitely encourage anyone who is listening to this, if you got value out of this conversation, definitely go, even if it's just the money that you would have spent on coffee for the week, like contribute to this amazing work and this team of people that's doing incredible stuff in Hawaii. If you ever have the opportunity to go out and visit, I highly, highly recommend. And I just want to thank you, Chelsey, so much for your time and everything that you're doing. I think your leadership in this space it's so inspiring to me as another, female who's hoping to, someday take on some kind of leadership position, whatever I end up doing. It's really awesome to know that there are people like you out in the world.
Yeah, mahalo. I mean, I forgot to talk about this, but I am a Native Hawaiian woman from the Waianae community. So that's a huge reason why I said yes to being an executive director, because I don't think anyone really dreams of being an executive director of a nonprofit. That's no one's like dream job. You get kind of called to that space. And so, yeah, to me, it's important. Representation matters as a woman of color, as a Native Hawaiian woman, as an introvert. I'm not trying to be a role model to anybody, but just showing that it's possible, to enter these kind of spaces, enter these kind of positions, despite fears of failure and feeling like you're not enough, but just knowing and trusting that we are enough. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode. We're excited. I'm going to make sure that all of this information about social media, website, get put into the show notes so that you can follow up and reach out. And we'll be back soon with another interview.